Sometimes you can be in the middle of the battlefield and not see the cavalry charging or hear the guns roaring. The hidden game doesn't announce itself. The test doesn't come with a textbook or a prep manual. And here is the story that illustrates exactly what I mean. One night, 2 a.m. in the morning, I got a phone call from the corporate headquarters. It wasn't the usual practice, but it wasn't completely unprecedented either. They found an issue with the release candidate we have submitted a few days earlier, and they wanted this issue to be fixed as soon as humanly possible. Ideally, before 8 a.m., when next QA shift comes to the office. At this point, I had a choice to make: wake up the team, bring them back to the office, and hope that already exhausted engineers can work through the night, fix the issue, and resubmit before 8 a.m., or wait until morning and miss 8 a.m. window. I didn't believe that dragging the entire team back to the office in the middle of the night will be 3 a.m. by then would actually help us to solve the issue, and potentially it could create other more serious problems. But even if the team could pull it off in a short term, in the long run, the damage to the trust and team morale wasn't worth it, in my opinion. I knew we had time before this project was set up to launch. It was not impacting any customers in the real time. And most likely, these few hours won't make any difference in the final delivery schedule. And I didn't want to blame the urgency on anonymous leadership in the headquarters because it deprives the team and myself of any agency. So I decided to wait. The team came in the morning, fixed the issue, resubmitted in early afternoon, as far as I can remember. Was no business impact whatsoever. And later on, this project shipped exactly on schedule, on the dot. Honestly, I forgot about the whole thing almost immediately. The team never knew about the situation to begin with because I never told anyone. Well, until now. What I did not know back then, and nobody told me at the time, that at the corporate headquarters, the situation was interpreted completely differently. I was labeled an obstructionist, and as you can imagine, it did not help the trajectory of my career at that company. And I only learned about this obstructionist label many months later and by accident. And then I kept thinking, by any objective measure, my decision was correct. The issue was fixed, the deadline was met, the project shipped on time, the team didn't have to go through unnecessary and potentially demoralizing nightmare, both literally and figuratively. None of it mattered. The logic at the headquarters was completely different. They thought that I had failed at crisis management. And I thought there was no crisis. No cavalry was charging, no guns were roaring. I failed the test because I did not understand what I'm being tested for. The test was for the action, not for the outcome. And it didn't matter at all if the crisis was real or imaginary, because, the next one always could be real. So the amount of hours my team slept that night was not in anyone's KPI metrics. The way I respond to 2 a.m. phone call apparently was. And this is how I learned that in the corporate environment, being right by any objective measure is a very poor substitute for being aligned with unspoken corporate culture. Not the declared one, the actual one. And the culture is neither good or bad, it just is. And you can fight it, you can comply with it. If you can't stand it, you should look for another place to work with a better cultural fit for you. But as long as you're there, you have to understand what is actually being measured, not what you think is being measured. So you won't be surprised by the consequences of your own decisions and your own actions, like I was. The experiences like this are not rare. The hidden game is always running a test you haven't been told about. And the only question is, whether you find out before or after the consequences arrive. You may assume you're being tested for subject A, but it is actually subject B, and you failed because you were preparing for the wrong test. And I've seen this pattern repeats itself many times since. It is especially prevalent in startup evaluations and acquisitions where the stakes are much higher. If any of this resonates, leave a comment or drop me a line. I'll be happy to discuss it in more details and cover it in another episode. And if you're navigating something that feels confusing, book a free discovery call on my website. It is a real conversation, just you and I going through your specific situation and figuring out exactly what is going on. Please follow me on X and subscribe to my YouTube channel so you won't miss the next story. And see you in the next one.